All right, welcome to the Saturday, July 9th, 2016 episode of DU Explorers. On with us tonight is Mastered Red, Neapolitan, Scruggs, Wardian 2000, Xander, and Darius Sanguna. So, how's everybody tonight?
Good.
Good, bud.
I'm excellent.
Great.
Doing fantastic.
All right.
How are you, sir?
I could be better.
Yeah, I heard you were feeling a little under the weather there.
Yeah, I have some lung issues going on. I went in and got a test, and they said my lung capacity was at 60%. So,
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, sounds
More
pretty
cigarettes
bad.
for you.
I'm getting
Yeah.
sick just listening to you.
I may as well just smoke, right?
Yeah, so people, give them all the charity money, please.
You need smoke. Just kidding. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. Why don't we start off with doing a quick introduction for everybody who wasn't here last week. Yeah, I guess we can start off with you, Mastered Red.
I'm Mastered Red, founder of the DUA. Darius.
Darius Sanguinatus, leader of the Terran Union, at your service.
Hey everybody, Neapolitan here. I help organize the Cinderfall Syndicate and just want to see the community as a whole prosper.
Hello, everybody. I'm Wardian. I'm the resident space wizard, as I like to call myself. But moving on.
I'm Yamamushi. I am the Archbishop of the Order of Meru. And yeah, I guess I am putting this thing together for us. Moving on.
All right, I'm Scruggs, a general miner, and pretty much pawn. All right.
You're going to have to explain that one later.
Right. Yeah, I want to know what good use we can put you through. Oh! Speaking of that, I'm Xander. I'm a behind the scenes guy at Reddit DU. For those who don't know, it's /r/duel the game. Come check us out. Come sub and find out what the conversation's all about.
Yep, and we were actually supposed to have a guest present tonight, Porco Corp or Figo Porco, but yeah, didn't show up. Good job.
Oh,
Well,
I'm sure.
moving on.
I'm sure it's circumstances beyond Porco's control, but that does leave me kind of just hanging in the wind since I was supposed to interview him.
Well, I guess we can talk about him anyways, talk about what we know about him. I mean, the least we can do is discuss his content.
Yeah, I suppose we'll do that later. Just a shame we won't be able to ask him the juicy questions for tonight.
Wait a minute, did he confirm he wouldn't be able to show, or?
Nope.
He's probably asleep.
Oh, all right. Well,
Isn't he
hopefully
both a billionaire and on the front lines reporting by the minute news?
He's probably busy.
Yeah, he's actually Anderson Cooper.
Okay. Well, I suppose we've all been wondering what the community site was like for quite a while, and they actually released it. As you can see, the Dual Universe community site was just released yesterday, and already a whole page, 4 pages of organizations. Is it more now, or is it less?
I believe it's more right now. Yeah, it's up to 5. As I can see.
5 pages.
wow.
Yeah, half of us are going to be dead by tomorrow.
How many orgs per page does it show, by the way? I have to look at.
10.
So we've got 40 orgs signed up. That's pretty good for a first day, I'd have to say.
48. 48 organizations.
Well, one of them doesn't count because that's Novacork's test sample, but
Okay,
well,
47.
close enough.
And DU Explorers count also not.
Okay, yeah. I
DU
suppose there's
Explorers
actually
being
just
the
about
largest
40.
organization right now.
Yeah. Largest non-actual organization-based organization. Yay. Yeah. So, yeah, the community site, many of us were given an opportunity to review it before we actually got on. Such as me, Yama, Darius, Neo, I don't know who else in this
Not
Discord
me.
chat.
Or me.
And probably not Xander either. So, yeah, just us. Yeah, we're the elites here. Deal with it. But yeah, we got the chance to review it hours before its release and give our organizations a chance to thrive on it. But what we want to know is everyone's opinions about it. How about we start with, let's say, Darius. What are your opinions on the... Oh, now he joins. Now he...
Hey, Porco.
Hey, Porco. Stream started.
Well, sounds like he's having some technical difficulties for now, but while he works that out, yeah, why don't we keep talking about the organization site?
Yep.
You'll have
Alrighty.
a job to do, Wardian.
Yes, excellent.
Okay, okay, Darius, what's your opinion on the new community site?
Yes, I was quite a bit disappointed. So it's great problem was what I had was the limitation of the organization descriptions. For my actual description for the Terran Union, I was at the character count of 26,000, and the site allows only 16,000. So I I must find a way to work around.
Well,
I didn't
something that we might. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Now, can you guys hear me at all?
Yes, we can now hear you.
Yes, we can now hear you.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Yes, this
Niz
is Porco. A little bit of a late introduction there.
Porco, tell me about yourself a little bit. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, this character I created to play Landmark, and it was a great voxel game. And now it's a little bit, other things are coming out, and I started this thing called Porco Corp in Landmark, and I'm fully planning to continue that in Dual Universe.
I see.
Sweet.
Yeah. Let's see.
So,
I think
just so you guys know, the character of Porco, who I am, is the James Bond villain mixed with Stephen Colbert.
Oh, that's a good mix.
Oh yeah, very egotistical, it's all about me. It's all about there'll be an article about something going on, and then an article about me doing something. You know what I mean?
Well, that would explain the Call Porco Corp Assassins ad in one of your.
You like that? Eh?
Yeah. Actually, is this the first time you've actually done like a little magazine spread for a game?
I was doing this newspaper for Landmark, and it was called like the Landmark Daily, and like stuff like that. It was always stories about like what was going on in game, and I started doing little ads.
Very cool.
So they're pretty easy to do. I mean, people are like, "Oh my God, you put another one out," and I'm like, "How much time do you spend on?" Like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just actually asking everyone's opinions on the community site, and since you did show up, I might as well ask your opinion.
Oh, are you talking about the new community site for Dual Universe, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's nice. And I think like their whole setup is nice, and then I like the fact that they're calling them organizations, keeping it really open. You get people up there like Porco Corp registering and then posting, and creates it's a smart thing to do. These guys know what they're doing, though, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely do look like they do know enough of what they're doing.
That's the impression that I'm getting, is that as devs, they actually know how to do marketing and how to do, how to welcome things like what's going on right now. You know what I mean? And making this and going, look, there's a bunch of fans out there that want to give us money. Well, think about it, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
suppose.
Darius was bringing up a point, which was character limitations. I know that Niz was talking about getting feedback for that, and anything that we see limitations on, or anything that can be improved or added that would make be viable toward the website, he's up for suggestions. So just drop him a feedback on that on the forum, I believe, and he'll increase the limitation, I'm sure, if you don't think it's enough for description.
Okay.
Yeah, that definitely makes it easier.
Now, the cool thing about voxel games, right, is that you can literally create a universe within a universe, and, comic books can be made. New movies. I mean, because, unfortunately, right, when we were playing Landmark, there wasn't a lot to do. So we had to find things to do. And people got pretty creative. And anytime that you can build, right? So I think you're going to get a lot of creative people playing this game, and just for the sake of building.
I remember one of the
sure.
first things I saw built in Landmark when Alpha was out was a McDonald's.
But I built a strip club.
Why does this not surprise me?
Well, Porco Corp is about adult entertainment, weaponry, and food. So
Everybody's got to have a niche in the universe.
Can we even say these types of things on Twitch?
Yeah, I think so.
As long as we don't
If not,
show
so well.
them.
And these guys don't, in this game, seem to be like kid-oriented either. It seems to be fairly adult-oriented, so I'll be able to do my strip clubs in-game.
Well, I reserve judgment on that, considering how many some of the posters I've seen on the forums. Adult level maturity, that's somewhat relative sometimes.
Well, yeah.
Age
Yeah,
is
of course.
definitely relative. The maturity part, I don't know.
What does
But-
maturity have to do with it?
I don't know, but
I was just thinking about this community site here. I think it was a great feature of the community site, or it's going to be a great feature of the community site, is that all the stuff that we're doing now is going to be in the game. Like, they've confirmed that this is all linked with organizations that are going to exist in the game when it launches.
Oh, yeah. And that's a smart thing to do. They're starting their game now. You know what I mean? Instead of waiting until an early alpha release. They're letting us play right now.
And I'm sure there will be more to the community portal as well. I mean, right now it's organizations, messages, and your profile. That's it. There's undoubtedly going to be more added to it.
Everybody's screaming for these guys to put out video.
We're all screaming for them to put out more. We're kind of, we're kind of all in limbo right now with a lot of the features that we want to see, or even anything that's actually confirmed.
yeah, and I think that people are they're interested in creating, doing voxel work, and understanding how what their environment's going to be like. But I think that a lot of people also want to know what are the core mechanics of the game. What are the incentives to play and build and create, and to PvP, and to become a dominant organization, but an organized group. And I think that when they solidify more regarding those gameplay mechanics, and not just a free-form sandbox game to where you can create, I think that is going to steer a little bit more of what kind of community we actually get.
Well, aren't they following like the Eve type model?
Well, when you look at a lot of the things, that people are discussing on the boards, particularly about what they think the game will accomplish or what direction the devs are heading, you have to keep in mind that most of us don't even have the same vocabulary or vernacular when we are describing a lot of these things. So, for instance, a lot of people would consider Skyrim a sandbox game.
Right.
However, though you are open to explore Skyrim in whatever manner you choose, and in that way, it's a sandbox. Everything is already set in there. You know, the quests are already laid down for you. The things that you can discover in game are already laid down for you. So in that way, it's not a sandbox. So when people call Dual Universe a sandbox, what do they mean by it being a sandbox? Do they mean, am I going to be open to exploration? Do I mean I can create literally everything in the environment? Do they mean, am I going to be able to create the economy? And you'll see the differences of opinion on how people look at a sandbox, mainly from their prior experiences. People that have played EVE Online, for instance, you know, they look at sandboxing as, you know, being able to explore the things that are out there, how they want to explore it, and how they want to influence the economy and influence each other. For them, that's the sandbox.
Right. No, but I get you. I get what you mean, right? And let's take a game like Landmark, which is a voxel building game, which is a sandbox game. Okay.
Yes.
But the game part, it's where it's lacking huge. Okay? Is that there's no progression, there's no real fun gaming, it's just a building thing. Okay? And that's where I think these guys are going to marry the EVE Online aspect of things with probably slightly better, more fun, less feels like a job type of gameplay. Because the biggest, complaint with EVE Online is that, hey, I already got a job. I don't want to put 7 hours into this one. Okay? And that was the biggest complaint. So I think that if these guys get that formula right, between sort of like, the sandbox that Landmark is, the sandbox that EVE Online is, and something in between that with certain game mechanics, where there is progression. You know what I mean? Character progression.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's but like I said, we're kind of up in the air right now on what exactly that DU is going to incorporate in game. They say that we're going to have some type of skill system, for instance, but we have absolutely no idea how it's actually going to work. We've got a couple of details and we can, assume certain things, but then a lot of it is just left open to interpretation.
Oh yeah, well, we're gonna have to wait until like some kind of early alpha release to actually be able to talk about this in a way that, and then the game's gonna change, right? When we all get together to our DU panel, okay, and we go, well, this mechanic of the game really sucks. Well, the devs are gonna be listening because they're not idiots.
And we should totally Twitch stream it when we do it.
Oh,
Yes.
well, yeah, we used to do that in Landmark. And when the old SOE team was in there, okay, they would sit there and listen to us, interact with us, and I mean, like, because they wanted to build a good game, okay? And it worked really, really well. Of course they'll be listening.
They better.
Hey, we are the people that are going to take our wallets out and give them money. And we're promoting, do you know what it's like when your own customers do the marketing for you? Because the gaming industry, I'm a business consultant outside of this, okay? And the gaming industry is one of the few industries in the world where this happens. This doesn't happen in other industries.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, it's interesting to look at things, I guess Star Citizen being the main idea I'm thinking about when it comes to crowdfunding, what they'll offer us in a way of incentive to get funding for the game. Will we get, earlier access? Will they create a voxel-based editing system so that way we can start to create right away? Or maybe even make things for the game before the game comes out. Will we get a new, a certain set of tools or parameters for the game itself, or what have you?
Well,
for donating a certain amount or being in a certain,
I think that they're going to use probably the standard approach to this, which is going to be different packages, right? And the lowest level package will allow you to win. But yeah, voxel building is the bone of the game. It's going to happen from the second that we get in. It's how you build your ship. It's how you do anything in the game. So I'm curious to see what voxel building engine they have on this. They told me that they built their own voxel engine, so that's kind of...
All right, I didn't mean to steer us off topic or anything, but Yama or Red, you want to stay on topic here? Or?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, I think we should just kind of wrap up this community sites topic and then get into actually interviewing Porco properly here.
Yeah, but just I'll go down the list of did you like it or not for the community site. Neo, did you like the community site?
Yeah, I think the community site is really great. I was impressed how smooth it is and just how well it works on a fast launch.
Orion?
Yes, I do like it. It could use some improvement, and I'm sure it will have it, but I definitely like the way it's running so far.
Yep. Yama?
I like it. I like it a lot. I know that they're going to be growing it and they're going to be adding more features to it, so I'm looking forward to those. But for a first launch, it's very, very basic and it does everything that it should do.
Scruggs?
Yeah, I think it's actually it's really good. I like that it's kind of simple. It's not too much. I mean, it really is. It is basic in its design. You've just got organizations, messaging, and profile. So it's really straightforward. I like that because I wasn't trying to learn, navigate away a new site. So this is. I like the fact that it's simple. It's kind of cool that like some of the posts are featured. So I like that, and then especially with what's on there right now is pretty cool. I'm mostly just going to be using it to check up on different organizations, see kind of what their lores are, and just kind of see how many members they gain, kind of watch which ones stay active and which ones kind of fall off to the wayside as more people kind of come through. So that's basically what I'm going to use it for. But I think it's nice. If there's room for improvement, I don't know what I would improve upon it if I were running the site. So I actually like it the way it is.
And I believe we already got your opinions, Andrew, but just refresh it, yes or no?
I'm going based on what Scruggs was saying as well. I like it. I think it's very simple to use at this point. I think there obviously can be added more features, but I also think that they're trying to figure out what those features should be based upon what the game's the game's mechanics will be like. So I think that as the game progresses, we'll see more features and more detail go into the organization items and features and what have you.
And my final answer, I suppose, will be yes. I think it's currently a great place for hosting your communities, hosting your organizations, and I think it will expand definitely over time. So any features that we're currently asking for, like the character count, for example, I think will be added eventually.
Don't forget Darius.
I did ask his opinion at the beginning.
It sounds like you
I think
brought
he's
up Darius.
Another one.
He might want to add something to the end of the conversation is all.
It's fine.
I just want
Darius?
to add, sorry to speak up, but I just wanted to add, I hope that they keep a pattern of this allowing you to do things out of game with websites. I hope that they keep this pattern up so all sorts of game features extend into the internet so that we can manage things in game without having to log in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Darius, I suppose, might as well get yes or no as well.
Okay, yeah. What I wanted to say was, overall, I like the site. I was but just a bit cut off in my opinion as Porco has joined, and maybe it was a bit negative because I know the editor from the forums, and I have compared these two, and yeah, basically this.
Okay then. Well, I suppose it is time for the interview on our guest tonight, Porco. Or, let's see, what did you... I'm trying to remember something. Oh yeah, Porco Dio.
Hello.
Yes. Okay, I will hand this conversation off to Wardian. Wardian, would you please continue the interview to squeeze out any information from Porco?
Absolutely. First off, I'd like to ask, what would you like us to actually call you? I mean, you have Dr. Frigo Porco, and you have Porco Corp, and so what would you prefer we called you right now?
Well, generally, I like the media to call me Lord Porco, but in this case, since we're all friends, you can call me Mr. or Dr. Porco. I'll leave this entirely up to you, and then once we get to know each other better, then you can call me Frigo. That's the way that it works.
Fair enough. I will call you Dr. Porco. I'm getting other suggestions from everybody else, but we'll just leave those outside for now. So you've told us a little about your background. You told us that you're a businessman. Can you elaborate on that, or?
Well, Porco Corp has made its fortune through, adult entertainment, strip bars, weaponry, weapon manufacturing and research, and news conglomerate.
Because we all know strippers and research goes well.
They do. It's the stress relief aspect of the research teams.
I suppose I can say nothing bad about having a stripper in a 45.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you've mentioned that you played Landmark. Did you play any other MMOs while you're at it?
I've been playing as this Frigo Porco since I was probably since video games existed. That's always been my screen name. I played like every other MMO out there, but not really, like MMOs are dangerous beasts.
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate on that one. Dangerous how?
Okay, so when I stopped Landmark, I got bored and started a home business that made me $5,000 a month.
What's the hitch?
You understand, right? MMOs are dangerous beasts. I don't know how to manage them in time. This new dual universe is scary.
I can definitely see that. Is there any other games in particular that you like to play?
Yeah. I mean, I play stuff on Steam. I play, I've been a gamer all my life. That's my view of entertainment. I don't watch TV. If I'm going to spend my time in entertainment, it'll be playing games. Sure, every game out there, I'm pretty up on it.
Good philosophy.
One of the questions that somebody wants to ask you is, do you own your own territory, maybe like a Porco Disneyland?
In where? In real life or in the game world?
I don't think it really matters right now.
Because, I'll tell you, the person I am in real life is very different from the character I portray online. And the character that they will see in Dual Universe when Porco Corp gets in there.
I can see it right now. You're the guy that everybody worries about, building the structures and ships that aren't quite safe for work.
Well,
but you've built them in the safe zone so nobody can get rid of them.
In 2014, there was a treaty drawn up in Landmark called the Phallic Treaty of 2014. So
Oh, I can imagine.
Do I need to go any further? Okay, that was
No, please do, please.
No, you don't. I was there.
You were there. You saw the Phallic Wars.
Please do inform of me.
Oh God. Okay, I guess
I ended up building this Phallic.
Inquiring minds want to know.
And my guild leader said that I had to take it down and ordered me, so I quit the guild and started a big war. Okay, newspapers, and we ended up making a song for this guy. It's called What a Phallical World. We portrayed What a Wonderful World. And I actually got a professional singer to sing the song. I got a brother in Calgary who's a professional musician.
Are you kidding me?
And the song can be found on YouTube.
No, he's not kidding you.
No, we're
It
not
really
kidding.
isn't.
And as the winner of the phallic war,
Oh.
yes.
Alrighty. Moving on. Otherwise, this will just keep on expanding into a direction that we don't want to go.
You will often find that with interviewing Dr. Frigo Porco.
Well, that already. So you've already covered one of the other questions. What do you want to do when DU launches? I can only imagine. What inspired you to create the Dual Universe newspaper?
Well, because it's fun, right? And it gets the community involved. And they're actually fun to make. Right? I have fun doing it. It's it's enjoyable to make these, and I share them with my professional 45-plus-year-old friends here, and they get a howl out of it.
Well, I have a question that's sort of it relates to it. So you're doing the Dual Universe newspaper right now, and right now it's more of a a comical satire kind of deal. Do you plan on taking it in a more serious direction? I only asked this because I didn't, I know of some of the events that you talk about, but I didn't read like your landmark newspaper, for instance. So I don't know exactly what you like to cover.
Okay. Porco Corp News is well known for being insanely biased. Outright lying.
So regular news then.
Regular news, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because that's the character that I'm portraying, right? Like, I'd be more like a cross between Trump and Stephen Colbert.
Oh gosh.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's the character I'm portraying out there. It's like this multi-billion engulf, like egotistical maniac. Okay. And so that's how the newspaper gets read.
Well, I'm sure we will be entertained by you in future news articles.
I certainly hope so. I'm entertaining myself. And that's,
So we know that, I know that looking at the organizations list, you've already started Porco Corp. Do you plan on starting up any other organizations?
Nope, but people are welcome in Porco Corp. It's run like a dictatorship. Okay.
Communism at its finest.
Yes, there's not a lot of democracy. I'm probably going to have like a civic #1,
Ah, you petty tyrant, you.
Yes. Not petty,
Does
I'm
anybody
afraid
have
to,
any other questions for Dr. Porco here?
I'm interested to see what your
Do you
your
plan
roles.
on hiring employees for your nightclubs?
Yes.
Is
Yeah,
this a
yep.
personal question or?
Used to come in and dance.
I just want to know that my RP experience is going to be phenomenal.
Right?
Well, in that case, I certainly hope that the devs make it so we can take off our spacesuits later then.
I'm hoping that they
Oh gosh.
for NPCs.
Otherwise, it's going to be kind of a letdown.
I'm not starting that thread.
No, you
No,
shouldn't.
but I will.
Of course you will.
Yeah.
Well,
Needed.
anyways,
Well,
moving on.
It's good to know for my backup plan that there'll already be a place that exists, because if things with Cinderfall don't work out, dancing on a mailbox is the next best thing.
Oh my god.
Lots of money to be made at Porco Corp clubs.
Is this bringing back memories of the wars? Are you getting PTSD flashbacks?
Well,
This is
right
this is
now Porco Corp is involved in a secret research project called the Chode Project, which I can't really discuss on the air today.
I don't think you can discuss that anywhere.
Moving on.
Yes, moving on. We have to move on from this. We could be at this
Quickly.
all day.
Yes, yes. Okay, back to Dual Universe.
We'll be able to make ships in any shape we want in Dual Universe, won't we?
Well then,
Oh no.
Yeah,
So,
you got it, eh?
you can see where he's putting his two thrusters.
So the next topic on the list is for discussion tonight is going to be covering the dev Q&A, the AMA thread and the forums, and also anything new we've learned through social media. And I'm gonna kick off that topic with what I think is most exciting. One of the most exciting things this week is cables or pipes.
Yes.
It was brought up on Twitter. The question: how is energy going to be transferred from items to power sources? And the answer they gave us was this awesome screenshot of pipes. This is how energy is going to be transferred through ships. And I think I actually touched on this topic last week when I was talking about cables and running cables through ships. So while it's not cables, it's very similar. So,
It's something to get energy from point A to point B so far.
So yeah, what
And
does everybody think about this?
Awesome. 10 out of 10. Would buy it again.
One of my first questions about it that comes to mind is if there'll be power fall off, as it runs through each block.
Yes, if there's
Ooh.
damage to the vessel, yes.
Hey guys, unfortunately, call that I gotta go.
Oh, well, there's
Porco, it was awesome. Thanks for visiting.
Pleasure visiting, and I'll see you guys on here hopefully next weekend or next time you guys get out and get this going.
Maybe you'll see me in
Well,
one of
thanks
your
for stopping
club.
by.
Come on down.
Coming down, everyone's invited.
Bye, everybody.
See
ya.
you. Thank you for joining the stream.
Pleasure.
Well, that was fun.
Yes, but back to the topic of wires and pipes.
You know what's interesting to me is when they show components like this, power component, and they have yet to show us what defensive components and weaponry will look like and whether we actually have to create that stuff ourselves. But it makes me believe that they're really showing that we have to put forth some effort in forethought on about how we build structures and how we build vessels, what have you. With having to account for room and space and how much volume there's going to be, how much power is going to be needed to maneuver or use thrusters, and I was saying before the defensive and offensive systems. When I look at components like this, I really think that they're thinking on a bigger scale than I think a lot of people who think about traditional voxel building requires and you should anticipate. So, yeah.
And I think this also adds to the point that builders are going to have to learn their stuff, man. If they want to get anywhere, they have to learn their stuff.
I think one cool detail in this screenshot is if you look at that pipe at the top right there, it's actually a pipe that curves upwards. And you can imagine rotating that and making these pipes run vertical up walls and through ships and double stacking them and whatnot.
Yeah, it's going to leave room, I think, for a lot of positioning, like you just said. And that's where I think that whole planning comes into play. You're going to really have to think about how your systems are going to work and the way they're going to be trafficked, the way things are going to be directed, so to speak, and how much. I don't know if the power input's going to be the same everywhere, or if it's going to be, if you're going to have like a power meter, you're going to have to deal with certain percentages of power based upon how many generators you have, that kind of thing. And I think that adds a lot to the creation base of the game. And I think, like just with what you said, it's going to take a lot of forethought to figure out how it's all going to fit together, yet still be able to maintain room for people to move around. People, for players to feel like they actually have space to work with within whatever they're trying to build. So,
And I just want to point out something here. On the warning label that was listed on one of the pipes, people started to read it, and in there they said that they didn't intend for it to read it, and they didn't say anything about the features, but it literally said in the pipe, it literally said flux capacitor, uh, something that I can't even properly pronounce, but a whole ton of just random things in there that this sound kind of interesting to go over. Although I can see a flux capacitor actually being something that they would use. So I wonder if that is actually something that would be added.
don't know.
Yeah, I can't really read what's on the actual the the tubing
Yeah.
and whatnot. But what I do see is on one of the pieces of tubing, there's it looks like a little screen on there, and I'm wondering if that will in game, if that'll allow you access to some of the the either be able to stop power for something or start power to certain areas. I think that'd be kind of cool, and it seems like I'm not sure why they would throw that on there if not for something like that. But I kind of like that idea. I like that. I like the different. I just kind of like this idea overall because of, like you guys were saying, having to actually wire your structures or wire your ships adds a different element to it and makes it so that you can't just have somebody go through and just kind of throw a ship together and have it work. There needs to be an element of working together because somebody will know how to wire a ship a little bit better, maybe a little more efficiently, and those are going to be the ships that people want.
Yep, and then obviously the people who know how to do all of the above and a bit more will be in R&D teams. They'll be locked away in that little dungeon you have in your faction area that just forces them to come up with new ideas.
You can't lock me up. I'll escape.
Also opens up an area of economics too, because there's going to be people who specialize in getting the materials or resources necessary to actually build these pipes, and there will be people who construct them and just sell them on the market as bulk electric materials.
Miners and commercial producers, anyone?
And the other thing too is scaling. How far will these scale down? Will these be good enough to scale down to a fighter? Will they be big enough to scale up to a carrier? Like some kind of motherships per se. Will they have to be exposed? Will they consider the conduits, elements of the power systems, and they'll have to be exposed for either maintenance or repair during a battle if they're damaged? What kind of a lot of these questions will fall into play, but it's interesting to know that they're actually considering these as an actual physical element of anything that we put together, whether it's a ground structure or a vessel of any kind.
As far as I know, the pipes will only apply to larger ships. And the next interesting idea, I think, will be different versions of pipes. Some for electricity, some for fluids, some for gas, and so on. A whole lot more complexity.
Yeah, that actually goes into one of the posts that they made about fluid in the Ask Us Anything event, which it's barely gives us anything, but I guess we can relate it to it. So, anyone want to read it? Or
Yeah, I guess it's time to hit up these AMA things.
Sure,
list of
I'll read it.
topics.
So the actual quote is, how will water work in DU? Will it be a full fluid system, or will it simply be a placeholder texture? And their answer is, this point is not decided yet. We have to make a trade-off between realism and performance. It is unlikely that a full fluid system with multi-scale management will be implemented. A local voxel-based flow system limited to close-by liquid elements based on the kind of cellular automata is in discussion. You would have just limited local flow, a bit like Minecraft.
And
the
for
only
those-
part that made people understand there is like Minecraft.
Right.
Well, the thing about cellular automata is a good example is the game of life. I don't have any. I'm not going to put it up on stream right now. You can look it up. But the Game of Life is it's a game based on math principles, and um, yeah, I think if you just look up Game of Life and play a quick Game of Life, or play around with an editor, you'll understand what he's referring to here.
In I think I can relate it pretty easily. Cellular automata is basically a way to mathematically resolve something that is replicated or destroyed. So you can make something that seems really complex, but it doesn't have to use a very complex equation for the game engine to make it. This is where you get a lot of procedural generation. When instead of calculating out how water would flow, you just have an equation that tells you how water will flow, in certain circumstances, and then the game renders it as is. If that simplifies things any, I've just realized it probably doesn't.
Yeah, it
No, I
does.
understood it rather well.
A good example for that is if you ever actually Google cellular automata and you look at images, they'll often show like these pyramid drawings, and a lot of those are based off like genetics, and they show how that math equation works. Absolutely nothing to do with how the DU developers want to do it, but that's basically it. That's all it does. Cellular automata is just a simple equation that they can input in, and then the game will render it, and it will seem realistic.
Yeah, it makes enough sense. And then they said it won't be a full fluid system with multi-scale management, but they did not specify that there will not be pipes. They did not specify that at all.
True, but usually when they're talking about multi-scale management, when it comes to a lot of voxel-based games, what they do is they shorten or they lessen the amount of actual calculations that need to be done by using certain tricks. Anybody who's played like Space Engineers can tell you that if you go into no clipping mode and then you go into a planet, there's nothing in the middle of the planet that's been rendered. Nothing has been created until you actually start digging into it.
Yep, I've seen that.
So on the stream right now, I have the Game of Life running, and this is an example of what cellular automata would do. This is the Game of Life, but this is typically the example that is given. Imagine that each one of those yellow squares is where water exists, and whether or not water exists water will exist in the square next to it depends on a given state. We can actually clear it. Just clear. There we go. There's different like creations in cellular automata. There's like a lot of research that has gone into this stuff. But given this input, the rules of John Conway's Game of Life are something to the effect of if a cell is on, it's considered alive, and if a cell is dark, it's considered dead. And if there's two live cells next to each other, they will reproduce on the next stage, and then so on and so forth. And if a cell doesn't have enough alive cells next to it, it won't reproduce. And given very simple rules, you end up with something that kind of looks like this. This is called the glider, and it will just keep going on forever. If this grid was an infinite size, this thing would just continue on forever and ever, just constantly gliding. But the rules are very simple for it. So yeah, I just wanted to show Game of Life here.
We talked about DU, we showed the Game of Life.
It's a good example of how a water system would work, though.
Yeah. Something that I'm actually kind of hoping for is a fuel system, because we will probably be using some form of nuclear energy or fission or something like that, which is cool, but you can't just beat those good old hydrogen, gasoline fuel systems, mostly hydrogen, though, because it's just kind of interesting to see if you could actually wire those together and make them work. And I really hope that will work.
Well, I think with a sandbox building game, one of the things that you have to recognize is quite often somebody will do something that is completely unexpected. They'll combine something together, and it works. It works within the game's parameters and how the game was designed, but it was in such a way that the developers never intended it to happen that way. You just make something incredibly efficient, and you're like, wow. Afterwards, you look at that guy's design and says, that was very clever. We never would have thought of that. What made you think of it?
I think one cool thing. Sorry to take this topic back, but this is something I forgot to cover when we were looking at cables. In Minecraft, the redstone mechanics in Minecraft were very simple and are still very simple. You have connections with redstone, and then you have repeaters, you have power sources.
Comparators, redstone torches, pistons, daylight sensors, a whole number of inputs, a whole number of outputs, and all that.
So given, if a few more assets are created for the game, you can kind of create computation within the game using these assets.
Yes, and that's what you wind up seeing for very advanced and very skilled players when it comes to, or builders, I should say, when it comes to voxel-based games like Minecraft, Space Engineers, FTD, StarMade. You will see things that are so incredibly complex that you realize that this is of the far end of the spectrum of players. These are the people that are truly the great designers, and they're the truly great builders. They see things in ways that we can utilize things in ways that most of the other player base does not.
I'm sure we've all heard
Absolutely.
of a famous Minecraft YouTuber called Sethbling at this point. He makes extraordinary stuff within Minecraft, as always, with Redstone. And there will surely be those people as well with Lewis scripts, logic systems, even pipes and such. We will see people who can actually do that.
Yes, that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to see in the game. People building things that, just makes us go, wow. And that's what's great about a sandbox game like this. All right, should we move on to the next question that was up on the board?
I suppose so. Let's see who would like to read it.
Oh, I will. Let's see. So I'll go ahead and read the next one. Which features from Unigen's physics engine are being considered for use in DU? Will the game feature moving parts that will allow us to connect multiple player-built structures, like sliding rails, rotors, hinges, and everything that connects one voxel structure to another? And then their response to that is, so far, we use Unigen's physics engine only for the collision system and the force torque engine. We are aware that it can also offer various joints and motors, but the dev team might develop this feature in a different way. We have a plan to go with small-sized moving parts, but it's really far away in the roadmap. You would have joint units that can be used to connect them and then script them in LUA, and then could be used to make a large door or battle mechs or giant spider robots.
So I already have someone who's interested in this, a private team, who is already interested in developing battle mechs. Already.
I think all of us have posted on that thread at one time or another.
It's not something we're opposed to.
No.
No. And I would love to see, I understand that they're planning for it. I'm a little bit disappointed that they don't have more developed for it already. I'd like to see some of this all out already, because sliding rails, rotors, hinges, and things that connect one voxel structure to another, that's kind of, a necessity for any advanced building when it comes to voxel-based games like this.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing the Friday night, battle mech showdowns.
Oh, yeah. I wonder actually what uses we'll have, for instance, in planetary invasion.
Well, I can
Good
see
question.
I can see us being able to carry ordnance that you wouldn't be able to carry normally on the ground, unless it's some type of vehicle system. I can see that.
And we're also talking logistics here. How many can you get to a set area for said battle? And how will those systems be? How will those be maintained? Will it be just a simple wrench tool? Will you have to carry spare parts? How will that work? I think that's an important factor to think about when you're thinking about putting a bunch of these things together. They're going to have a lot of moving parts. How durable will this stuff be? And we were talking about power systems before. How much power are we talking about running on? Some kind of cell battery power or solar power? Is it a fuel system? And I think it becomes really important when you're talking about moving parts on how much energy and how much wear it's gonna have to go through at any given use. And logistics aside, I think that even if you can get plenty of these made up, it's going to still require, I would assume and I would hope it would still require some kind of service team to keep these things going.
Well, for the most part, when I look at the idea behind battle mechs and giant spider robots, most of the time I look at those and see them as large vanity projects. It's cool when you can do them, and it's cool if you can do them well, but for the most part, you're probably going to run the same type of limitations you would if you were trying to make these things in real life. As in, why would you do it? What makes making a battle mech better than just building a tank, for instance?
Oh, I completely agree there.
You're talking about something that's very sophisticated and has a very limited use. But that's talking reality, and if we're talking logistics, we always have to have that suspension of disbelief. There are going to be people who, if we can pull off battle mechs, who will make battle mech battalions. Why? Because they can and they think it's cool.
It's cool. Yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. Also, is that people will make these things because they can, and that's the main reason why they would do it. Maybe not even for any real function. It would just be like, hey, look, this is my this is my battle mech. It shoots things and moves on its own, and then that's pretty much it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've made it abundantly clear that when I start designing things, I'm going to make them look like monsters. What is that, a spaceship? No, it's a giant space kraken. Get it right.
I already got a couple people who are big Balmec fans, MechWarrior Online, Hawken, all those games, that are big fans of those. That the only reason I think they'll even join Dual Universe is to make a mech at this rate. Yeah. Already got that, probably in progress.
Yeah, what's going to happen first? Mechs are getting into space. Which I guess kind of takes us into the one of the I won't touch on that until we get to the AMA question. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Some part was what I've seen in the question was sliding rails, and I think that is a real useful part. Catapult launch system for fighters.
And just fighter base. Period.
Absolutely.
Trains.
There's so many features that when we look at sliding rails, rotors, hinges, that seem almost make them seem almost necessary, and it would be I think a great detriment to the game if they decided not to include those types of things.
Well, I think the most we can do is just keep bringing it up to them. Just keep telling them that's what we want. I'm sure they would move it up the roadmap if enough people said they wanted it.
So You heard it from Yamamushi, Twitch viewers. Go on the forums and tell them exactly that we want these things.
Spam him. Now.
Yeah.
Okay, question 8, which was on Wednesday, the 6th, July. I'll read this one. What the heck? The exact quote is, or the question per se, could we get a bit more information on how combat is intended to work? And Nazzle goes on to say, it's too soon to give a lot of details, but here are the basics. What we can say is that it will be much like the tactics rather than reflexes, in part due to the fact that targets will have to be locked on and then fired upon. This won't change, as it is a technical constraint to make large-scale battles possible. In ship versus combat, we intend to make it valuable to have a crew on board a ship with several people managing weapons and a central command room to help coordinate the action. As ships will be destructible, as they are made out of voxels, we have currently several ideas in mind to help develop combat in some unique ways. For example, the ability to breach a hull and board an enemy ship. This is, of course, an idea at the moment, and as we still need to ponder if we can implement such gameplay in a meaningful and balanced way. I know this is something you were talking about in boarding ships, Yama.
Absolutely. Now, it kind of surprises me to see it put as more of an idea than something on the roadmap. But I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
think
would rather it just be possible to board ships rather than a full-on breach system. It seems like that could be pretty intensive on calculations.
I think right now what it is this is just my opinion. DU developers are trying to find a strict balance between what is possible and what's feasible. So, for instance, I speak about this from my experience as space engineers. In space engineers, I can do all those things. Whether or not I can do all those things and not crash space engineers is two totally different stories. Just because I can do it doesn't mean the game engine can do it well. And so when you talk about breaching and boarding a ship, you're talking about interaction with voxels in a very specific way that the DU game servers will then have to figure out. Now, if that turns out to be a simple exercise, I'm sure they will include it, so it just seems as realistic as possible. If it turns out, 100 people trying to board 100 ships at a time can crash the game servers, they're probably going to come up with a different system that is not nearly as interactive. The same thing happens with all their systems when they talk about managing weapons and targeting specific voxels. Yeah, we could make the game so you can just aim at everything in first-person mode and shoot it and destroy voxels. You just can't necessarily do it well.
Okay, I think that's a good point. When I look at this question and I look at the answer, for me it seems like, because they've stated a couple different times that really combat and PvP mechanics are something that they're not focused on at the moment. They're trying to really get everything else tackled first before they even include something like that. And I think that's why they have it set as an idea at the moment and not so much on the roadmap, because I think the roadmap is mostly the non-combat and non-PvP mechanics as of right now. And what I like though is like what you were saying, being able to breach and hull and board an enemy ship could be really difficult to do for the actual servers to handle and things like that if you have a bunch of people doing it at the same time. So having something where it's like you were saying, less interactive in a sense, where like once you get to a certain point, it could be something that might be instanced or something. I don't really know exactly the best way to phrase that, but I think that's the right word I was looking for.
Yeah, and with their instancing setup, so to speak, their instancing, with it being local area sharding, essentially, I think that it will relieve some of that. I still think you're right. I haven't really seen regardless of the PC game to date, anything that can handle really, with the exception of very few games that can handle over 50 on 50, 60 on 60 people. Whether it's a shooter or an MMO that has large scale battles in it, the technology, it just hasn't demonstrated itself well enough, and it's games like this that are starting to push that envelope a little bit better. We still yet to see something like that out of Star Citizen, where they've been able to optimize such fidelity. But I think a game like this, where the fidelity will be there, but the game balance, I think, is going to be more of more focused and more of a priority. Will they be able to get large scale battles off fluidly, and not only that, but will with these large scale battles happening, will everything go as planned mechanically for the game itself? It's great to have battles and all, but if your systems aren't working properly, or your client frame rate or data is not catching up with the clients fast enough, you're going to have a hell of a time keeping a fair battle going with that many people. So, and that's a great question. Can they push that envelope? And with the underlying systems that you're talking about, will it be smooth enough to play with that many people?
It's definitely going to be a challenge, and they made it more difficult for themselves just because it's a voxel-based system. Voxel-based systems are inherently less stable when you're trying to come up with all these different interactions between different parts and such. But they seem to have some very good ideas so far. When Alpha comes out, I'm sure we'll see how they implement them.
I think one thing we kind of glossed over was this whole focus on multi-crew ships. It's going to be valuable to have a crew on board a ship with several people managing, all sorts of different things to help coordinate the action, and a central command to help coordinate the action. So that means, there might actually be battleships where the captain or, admiral or whatever he wants to call himself will sit on, the command deck and isn't actually, physically touching anything in the game, is more just there to coordinate the action, coordinate the battle. Like, there will have to be people that are making the strategic decisions for where the ship's going to move, and then there will have to be people actually on the gun shooting. And I like that focus on multi-crew ships.
Okay, you brought up a good point, and that kind of got me back to looking at it again. When I see what they're saying here, where it says, we intend to make it valuable to have crew on board a ship with several people managing weapons, what I like about that is that it's basically telling us you can't fully automate your ship, a large ship like that. Like, maybe when it comes down to, being able to script things, scripting stuff may be something where, you can allow it to be basically you're setting up the way it can be interacted with, I think, and not basically making it so it can be fully automated. At least that's what I'm getting out of it. Again, I'm kind of reaching with that, but that statement kind of is what leads me to that.
That sounds correct to me. And it should be that way. You shouldn't be able to build a large scale ship and then only, you get those people who say, well, I want a really cool big ship, but I really don't want a crew. I don't want to deal with other players, so to speak. And I'm glad to see that they're balancing the fact that they're not going to exactly cater that to that type of player.
You know what I say to those people? I say to those people, this is an EVE Online.
Right? You not only control one ship, but multiple.
I think it should be possible to automate a ship, but the automation should not be so good that it could replace players.
I think one of the great things about putting a focus on multi-crew ships and making them important, or having a crew being important, is that in EVE Online, when you have battles of say 3,000 people, you have 3,000 individual ships running around, and there's not a lot of variety in what's happening. I mean, you have battleships, you have the frigates, you have the small ships, you have the capital ships, and you have Titans that are shooting at each other. But otherwise, everybody is just kind of locked into their little groups. The frigates don't fly with the Titans. The frigates fly with frigates and maybe battleships. And there's ways that fleets are composed, but if there's a focus on multi-crew ships, what that means is that, when you have battles of, hundreds or thousands of players, there is more variety in what's going on. It's not so much like, oh yeah, I remember pressing the button in this Eve battle to, fire the shot, and like, I just kind of followed around my fleet all night doing that. The stories you tell will be more like, oh yeah, I remember having to run, down from the engine room down to grab a gun because we were getting boarded, or, I had to run down and, get on a cannon so that we could, broadside a ship. And everybody's stories are different. And, depending on the ship you're on, everybody has a unique way of being in a battle.
Well,
go ahead.
I would like to point out that when they talk about multi-crewed ships, they don't exactly talk about how they want to incorporate multi-crewed ships. I mean, there are other games, for instance, like has anybody played Artemis Spaceship Bridge Simulator, for instance?
Yes.
That could be the direction that they're talking about, but they aren't being.
Well, I think you should give a
completely
background
clear
of the
on that.
game for those who haven't played it.
All right. So Artemis is Spaceship Bridge Simulator is basically, imagine that you are the captain and crew of a Star Trek vessel. You have the captain, you have your other bridge officers, your first officer, your weapons officer, your engineering, the guy that is your navigator, your helmsman, and every person is actually, you have a real person fulfilling each of those roles when you're playing Artemis Spaceship Bridge Simulator. So the captain is basically telling his weapons officer, target that guy with, missiles or lasers or whatever, plot a course to this place. And that's how Artemis Spaceship Bridge Simulator works. There are a number of videos that can be found online. They have a Celebrity Artemis where they have people famous in gaming or the entertainment industry playing it. The one with Will Wheaton is fairly entertaining, I think. But that is a method that, when they talk about multi-crewing on your ships in DU, that is a method where they could entirely mean when they say that. Not just, we have a guy here manning the gun, we have a guy here manning this other gun, we have a guy here managing the engine and, repairing it and as it gets damaged, or which is very involved and very immersive, but maybe a little bit much.
So,
I just want to point that out.
I got Artemis running right now on the stream, just showing a quick demo of what it's like. In Artemis, there's one captain. Typically, it's played in the room together with other players, and you have a big projection screen up, and everybody's playing on their own laptops. And each laptop, every player is responsible for a different part of the ship. There's an engineering crew, there's a science, there's weapons, there's navigation. There's the pilot there with the joystick. Not everybody has a joystick in front of them. That's a specialized role. But of course, in Artemis, everybody has to be in the same room. In Dual Universe, clearly it would be around the world. But this might be what a game is like. The captain's not pressing anything. The captain is just watching the battle and trying to tell everybody else what to do. And everybody else has to know how to use their systems and be good at it. So, yeah, I just wanted to show a quick demo of Artemis here.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
So, yeah, I guess just to leave off on that topic, since I don't know if we beat it to death yet or not.
Getting pretty close.
Multi-crew ships, I think it's going to add a lot of value to the game. A different way to play. The whole focus on you want to be an engineer. Maybe you have to have a high enough skill level. Of course, we don't know anything about the skill tree, but maybe you have to have, skills in using some of that equipment so that, when you're on a battleship, being the chief engineer is not so much, because that's your role in the organization, but maybe that's because of the skills you have. Like, you are the only one with the skills capable of being the chief engineer or, the pilot, et cetera, or even using weapons. Like maybe you can't use the large cannon on the side of the battleship because you just haven't trained with it. You don't have the skills to do it.
That could make things very interesting play-wise as well if they decide to incorporate it that way. just because, now we have to find people that are not only have the skills on their character to do it, but they have to be good at it. In actual gameplay, the player has to know what he's doing.
Yes, indeed. I think that brings us to our next question. Question number 7. Who would like to read that?
I'll read it because I think it's the most exciting thing from this week. It's the most exciting thing I've ever heard about Dual Universe. This one tiny bit of information
Yep.
is going to make the game amazing in a way that no other game, I think, has ever come close. And the question, this is my question I asked, it was, how long are you intending new players to play before they're able to build vehicles capable of traveling to space? Will we be playing for weeks or months researching the technology to get there, or will we all be flying around by the end of the first day? And this was their response. It says, keep in mind this aspect of the game is still in early development, so what is explained below can change significantly through the game development. Flying from a planet to another should be a real achievement in our game vision, so it would not be available on the first day of the official release. If a player is here from day one, it might be weeks, maybe a few months before the travel from planet to planet becomes possible. This is still a topic heavily discussed in the team. However, later on in the game, when the global tech level of civilizations built by players will have reached a certain point, it will be possible for a newcomer to simply buy or be given a ship to fly with as soon as he arrives in the game. He will still need to learn a few skills to be able to fly it, however, but the basic level should be reachable within a few minutes and a few hours, according to the flying construct complexity. In short, the game experience for a player present from day one might be very different from the game experience of a player coming several months after the game has launched. Also different from the game experience of a player entering the game 1 year after official launch, where many solar systems will be, without a doubt, already discovered and colonized.
You were extremely excited about this one.
That's pretty heavy, though. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Like, getting to space we won't all just be, going to other planets immediately. This is, I think, what sets us apart from No Man's Sky even. Like, we don't just get the magic ability to go wherever we want. We actually have to work together. And the way I read this is, the reason it's going to take so long is not only because of the skills we have to get, but also perhaps the resources we have to get. And so we'll have to work together as players to actually build the technology together to get to space. And it won't happen overnight. I mean, it makes going to space an accomplishment. It makes what
I like?
Go on. Sorry.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Yama. What I like about that is the progression factor. You have to start with the basics. You will have to build structures in order to get those structures to help you build ships. And what you're talking about with the whole underlying cooperation thing and forming alliances and doing things for others and the benefit of yourself in a way lies huge on not just how economics will work, but how allegiances and how the social society, so to speak, will work as well. Who can be trusted, who can't, who's specialized at certain things and good at doing them, and who's not, that kind of thing, and what those people will charge for those kind of things or what they expect out of doing their services for their specialities. You're talking about progression and not only just technology itself, but personal progression in players where they're going to have to learn certain skills through playing and utilize those skills. People who have more advanced skills in that particular area and taking advantage of those and utilizing them. I think it brings up a really good point on team building and slower progression when it comes to the beginning of the game and not just free handouts and saying, hey, we're going to get you guys into orbit within 24 hours. Don't worry about it. It's going to take a while. And
there's also another kind of topic I glanced over the first time I read this that he touched on. He said, he said players still need to learn a few skills to be able to fly. The basic level should be reachable within a few minutes and a few hours, according to the flying construct complexity. So that kind of touches on the last thing we talked about, which is, your skill level is going to determine the type of ship that you can fly. So perhaps maybe we won't all be able to just jump into battleships. Like maybe it will depend on skill level.
And will there be like certifications per se, you know, to prove to someone that you have flying experience on, you know, just any given ship, or is there specifics? Do you have to have a classification license, you know, so to speak, on if you want to fly?
It's interesting too, because it really truly means that people will be able to build blueprints and sell them, and there will be unique ships across the world. And there will actually be a limiting factor to that, and that's the skill level of the people building those things. So like if you have a higher skill level in being able to, you know, research better equipment or build, you know, better engines or whatever, you as a player are going to be valuable because you focused on building and doing all of that. And ships, you know, really will be unique. I foresee alliances and corporations in the game creating, you know, specialized ships because they've set up the supply lines to get all the things they need to build those specific ships. Like it won't just be going and buying random blueprints. It's going to be, you know, I buy the blueprint and now I have to gather all the materials for it. Well, if I need to produce these in mass to sell in the market, like I need to have a supply chain with all the resources coming in and building specific ship types, like the most efficient supply chain you can get.
Right.
I wonder who will make that supply chain.
Space truckers.
Space truckers. There you go.
With the escorts.
Yep, with those mercenaries.
Nice. What I like about this is that it having a time frame on it. I mean, like they said, it may be subject to change really at any time, but having some kind of time frame makes it so that people are going to be working together. I really like that aspect of it. Really, when it comes to most games, I like to just usually like I'll play with a group, but a small group, and I tend to go off on my own a lot. But with this, I like that it kind of, you know, it's an MMO, so you should be playing with other people. And I haven't really played like a real MMO where you actually have to play with other people to accomplish anything of any significance. And I kind of like that this is kind of doing that or implementing that.
One thing that I've noticed is some of the screenshots you've been posting about the some of the concept art and what have you is that, and it was a big question for some people, is will we be able to create our own components? You know, not just so much the voxel-based components of the shapes, what have you, but we were talking about power systems, weapons, engines, life support, even mechanical things like doors. You know, and thrusters. You're actually seeing that they're not so much. They're providing some of the stuff for us. It appears that they're willing to. You know, these things can be built around the core structure of what we're trying to build, and we have to do that kind of testing to see if these things will actually fly based upon shape, based upon the weight and the mass that they have to incorporate into that, how much power and what have you goes into those systems. But the fact that they're actually building preset systems like that and allowing this to attach those systems and those pieces together onto the structure that we're trying to build, I think is kind of cool, because I think it was kind of worrisome to say, okay, well, who's going to be designing the weapons, you know, or can there be people designing weapons? Can there be people designing, you know, ship engines and that kind of thing? And what are the parameters you're going to allow them to do that? Well, I think that they're kind of already showing how far those rules can be pressed based upon what they're already building for us. And I think that's going to be important when it comes into play. It was just an offshoot kind of thing that I observed, but I think it's important to build some kind of preliminary rule set per se. Say this is what we're going to give you. If you want to build upon that, you're more than welcome to add more of those to it or what have you. But here's what you get.
Yep. And I think this actually brings us to our last Q&A on the Q&A.
I can read this
event.
one so that nobody butchers his name.
It's going to be quite a one to butcher.
Okay, so I also asked this question, and I'm excited about this one too, and I'll explain the backstory of why. I asked, what pieces of science fiction are influences for the developers? Are there any Jodorowsky, Inkle, or Meta Barons fans among them? And the answer was, we have at least 3 Jodorowsky fans in the team. As for the pieces of science fiction considers as influences for the devs, so many that we won't list them all. Here's the main ones. For the books, Ian Banks, The Wasp Factory, The Culture Series, Dan Simmons, Hyperion Cycle, Frank Herbert, The Dune Saga, Ernest Cline, Ready Player One, and Greg Egan. For the films, 2001, Blade Runner, Dune, Alien, Avatar. For the series, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. For the games, Games in Eve Online Universe, Mass Effect Trilogy, and Halo games. And so I will point out here why I brought up Jodorowsky specifically. Um, I don't know who's aware of this, but before the Dune movie in 1984, Alejandro Jodorowsky was a director in the 60s, and he directed a lot of weird movies that would otherwise push the boundaries of what movies are, or what would be considered appropriate for film at the time. One of those movies was Holy Mountain, and another one was El Topo, and he had another one, I believe, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Um, but after he made those movies, he decided to make Dune, and he brought on all sorts of famous people to help him make Dune, who were going to play parts in Dune. And the reason he did it is because his friend told him about the book Dune, but he never actually read Dune. And so he, brought together all these who would otherwise be considered today famous. He brought in all these artists. Pink Floyd was going to do the soundtrack for the movie. Orson Welles was going to be in it. David Carradine was going to be in it. Um, Salvador Dali was going to be in it. There's just tons and tons of famous people who were going to be in it. And the artist that he got to make all of the art for him was H.R. Geiger, who made the Alien in the Alien franchise, the Xenomorph, and also an artist by the name of Mobius, or Jean Girard. And he was a French artist, Jean Girard. And they made all this crazy art for the movie. There was fantastic spaceships and costumes, and it was going to be an insane, insane movie. But he could never get the funding for it, and so the project ended up falling apart. Well, as it fell apart, they took Hollywood found all those artists and all the things that he had worked on, and they started picking them off, and they started picking his people away from him. And so H.R. Geiger got pulled off his project to go work on Alien. An Alien would probably have never happened had H.R. Geiger not, started the artwork for the Dune movie that he made or had produced, but it was never actually filmed. Then you have Jean Girard, who is a famous artist who, came up with all sorts of scenes like The Empire Strikes Back. Cloud City, I think, was even his design. All sorts of crazy coincidences. He even made The Fifth Element. He was one of the costume designers for The Fifth Element, and if you ever read the comic book The Inkle, The Fifth Element is like taken. The beginning of The Fifth Element comes from the book The Inkle. They follow very similar patterns, and all of those comics, the Meta Barons and Inkle, the reason that they made those comics is because when they filmed Dune, or when they wanted to make Dune, and they couldn't make it, they were left with all this art and all this storyboard stuff, but they couldn't get the license to actually produce it as a Dune comic or anything to do with Dune. So they turned it into the Meta Barons and the Inkle. So the Inkle and the Meta Barons, they call it the Jodoverse. There's tons and tons of spaceships in there, and those spaceships are in all sorts of science fiction. But yeah, I mean, they laid the groundwork for what we consider science fiction now, even up to movies like Prometheus. A lot of the art from Prometheus even came from the Dune movie that Jodorowsky was making. So it's weird. If you ever get the chance to watch the Jodorowsky's Dune documentary, he talks. It goes into the complete depth of it and how much of science fiction today and modern science fiction is influenced by all of that. You'd be surprised. It's crazy. But
It sounds like a lot of inspiration.
yeah. I mean,
And
by all
honestly,
means, if you ever get the chance to, just pick up any of the Jodorowsky comics, Jodorowsky and Mobius comics, because Mobius was the artist, and you'll start to see, how the influences spread across all sorts of media. It's weird reading it. You're like, wow, I feel like I've seen this before, and then you realize, like, oh, this is Blade Runner.
I can chime in real quick. I've been wondering if their little reference to the Halo games there might be because so many people have been talking about ring worlds on the forums. That's all I've got.
We'll see what they come up with. I haven't heard of anything other than a sphere, but it would be cool if you could. I don't know if terraforming is going to get that deep. It would be kind of cool if it could.
I think people should just, if you really want to immerse yourself in Dual Universe, just pick up one of these books here that are on the list, or watch one of these movies. I know just this weekend I went to a couple of used bookstores and I bought the complete Dune series, like the prequels and the sequels. I even found a copy of the Dune Encyclopedia somehow. But yeah, like, just I'm burying myself in Dune and just science fiction, pure sci-fi, so that I can get kind of in the mindset for the game.
And that is a great series to read if anybody has a chance to do that. I did it when I was young. I read a little bit of it when I was younger, and the books don't do the movie doesn't do the books justice, and in some ways it's referenced, but yeah, Dune is an excellent series to read.
Okay. Well, I believe actually it's time to go into some of the personal topics that we've picked out from some of the stuff that we've been seeing on the forums, dev blogs, and social media. I think I'll go actually first. Actually, just today, a member on the forum posted, Halo 8381 posted about hacking, and it brought up another idea. It was already confirmed that there would be some hacking game, but it does make you wonder, what would hacking actually be like in Dual Universe? Will it just be a simple little button click, or will it actually be in-depth experience that you have to do to get a system overridden? And will it differ from block to block or voxel to voxel?
I would like to pipe up on this one. So somebody actually on a separate thread brought up, the idea that since we can program in Lua scripting, how cool would it be to create like a Lua virus to infect somebody else's, DPUs and override them and so on and so forth. And I responded very quickly to this one because I wanted to nip it in the butt. If you actually do something like that, you're not just making something up in the game. You're creating a real virus. And that's, going to create its own problems. And, they responded with, well, they should I'm sure that the developers could put in limitations. Like, as soon as you make it possible to create a virus, you make it impossible to place limitations like that. You would actually
well, sure, the limitation is the distance at which you can actually communicate with something. I mean, if you can't send a virus across space, then, one planet is not going to get infected.
But, I'm talking about the problems with, so you created a virus, and you created it in a way so that everybody that comes into, certain contact with this DPU, it spreads the virus, and then that virus spreads on and so forth and so forth. You're creating an actual problem that would have to be covered by actual security experts, creating antivirus software and firewalls. That's not something that the developers are going to sit there and say, yeah, that sounds cool.
Let's cause problems for all of our participants.
So if they're going to allow things like hacking or creating, throwing viruses at, different DPUs to try and interfere with it, it's probably going to be a mini game. They're not going to let you actually hack somebody else's DPU.
Oh shit! I have forgot to install Avira Antivir.
I think that answers that.
Yeah, that would be quite a nuisance. But it would be interesting if, some sort of little mini game. But it would also be interesting just to see them do it in an interesting way that isn't an actual virus as well, as you pointed out. Man, that would be, that would be quite interesting.
And this is slightly off topic. I won't go off on it too far. But what's interesting is that when they bring up a system like that, they're not just bringing that up, but they're bringing up ways to disable other people's vessels, whether it's land or whether it's surface or space. They're bringing up ways to create possibly even an EMP where you can completely shut down systems. Different scenarios, different types of game elements where you can actually use different strategies without having to destroy somebody's goods, so to speak, and still accomplish your goal. As let's say, as a pirate or something. So I think it's healthy that they start with something like that, but they should not just have one strategy in mind. They should probably look at a few different strategies and let us kind of go wild with implementing those strategies.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, is there anyone else who has a topic that they'd like to
Yeah,
discuss?
actually, I have some great topics to bring up, but I seem to be a master at bringing up things in either chat or in the forums that just make tons of people angry. Either I'm really good at that, or there's just a lot of angry people in the forums now. And I like
Both.
to believe the former, maybe both, maybe a little bit of both. But just to throw out some quick, blanket statements out there, I think there should be lots of food and cooking mechanics, maybe even chemistry mechanics involved with the food or the things that you grow, like a biology system. I think that you should be allowed to play a more than one account at once with limitations, and I think the limitations should follow the EVE Online limitations of you can't send one command to more than one computer or more than one instance of the game running on your computer at the same time, unless it is to log into the game or resize a window. Otherwise, you can't like just click one place and fire, three different ships at the same time. You wouldn't be able to reproduce or multi-box that way. I think, though, if I wanted to have one computer sitting next to me with one character running and another computer sitting next to me with another character running, doing something else in a completely different part of the universe, and they weren't, taking input from each other, I think I should be allowed to pay for two accounts and have them running side by side. And let's see. Oh, I think there should be docking ports as the last topic to touch on.
Docking ports isn't that controversial.
It seemed to be.
Did it? I didn't catch that one.
It's only as controversial as you make it for that one.
But he's good at making things controversial. But nonetheless, there are lots of space games out there who are considering that kind of stuff. And like I keep bringing up Star Citizen, but that's a primary. I mean, they're allowing people to actually blow holes in hulls, but they also add enough docking ports where ships can dock. If they can get somebody else's ship disabled, they can dock with them with a generic docking collar and board their ship that way. And I think that adds to the suspense of the gameplay itself.
My concern is, I know that the counter argument to needing docking ports was that doors can be Lewis scripted to act like docking ports. My concern with that as a solution is that you're going to end up with several different varieties of docking ports, and they're not going to be compatible.
True, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If I'm designing a set of ships for a particular group to use, I want them to be able to interact with each other, but I don't want them necessarily to be able to interact with others or others to interact with them. Particularly if I'm creating like a combat fleet, for instance, I don't want to make it easy for their enemies to board them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, we still don't know anything about the boarding mechanics.
Exactly.
No.
That's
a single thing.
This is what we're always coming up against now. we've got these really great ideas. We don't know enough about this game to really make any determinations on what would be good for it yet.
Makes for
I will
great
point out,
craft, though.
in
Yes,
Space
yes, it
Engineers, there is a distinct difference between a docking port and a door.
Oh,
True.
yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, one of them works, one of them doesn't.
Yes, this is true. I concede defeat on this point. I'm a space engineer's nut, and usually people tell me things. Oh, you can't do that in space engineers. I look at them like, are you serious? Have you've never seen some of the crap that we've built in this game?
Yeah, I've played Space Engineers for such a long. Let's see.
I know that multi-boxing was a rather controversial topic
Yeah.
that nobody agrees on.
I was
but
about to just kick you in the balls for saying that, too.
I think that I should be able to pay for more than one account, and I should be able to run 2 accounts, doing whatever I want with either of them. And I really doubt that NovaCorp is going to say, no, we don't want your subscription money.
This is true, but
I don't think they'll mind you paying for extra accounts with the limitations of having 2 accounts on at the same time. I think they'll mind that because
I think the resources that they would have to put into to prevent people from multi-boxing are not worth it. Because
No.
I mean, if you ban by IP? Does that mean that families can't play together, or you can't play with your kids, or your friends that are over, or your siblings? You can't play together in the same house. If it is banned by IP, what's to stop somebody from just putting one computer on a VPN, and then they would never know where the connections are coming from? It just seems like it's a waste of time to try to stop certain types of multi-boxing.
I agree.
You don't even need a VPN because you can just run a virtual computer from your own computer. I've done it before where I've had like 7 different versions of the same game running on different computers technically, but all the computers were being run from one computer.
And I'm not advocating for the game to be designed.
Alpha.
I'm not advocating for the game to, be made for multi-boxing. And I'm not advocating that they even support multi-boxing insofar as, hey, let me run 2 clients on the same computer. What I'm advocating is that if you are running 2 computers, you should be able to play with them with limitations, like the same limitation Eve has, which is you can't put input from one computer and have it go to all your computers at the same time.
Yeah.
I will bring up this one point. The reason why I think there's so much contention on this is because you can't really debate it. You can only argue about it because for all the reasons that people want multi-boxing to be allowable are the exact same reasons for all the people that don't want multi-boxing to be allowable.
I'd like to welcome 2 of the live stream viewers, Kicklix and Shadowlord Alpha.
Yes,
welcome.
Hey.
Howdy.
I already said hi, so hi again.
How you guys doing? Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Doing good. Belly's full. Just wanted to catch a stream. I saw the tweet earlier today about it coming on tonight, but then when the time actually came, I'm an idiot and I missed the first half hour.
I was busy at work, so I didn't even manage to get in for the first half hour.
Priorities, they're a pain in the ass sometimes.
Well, you need money to play the game eventually.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually also on the forums trying to do a bit of a write-up. I wanted to get into Discord to go back to when you guys were talking about how combat might play out, because I think that in some cases I think we're digging too deep into it and we're looking for complex answers for a relatively simple mechanic.
You want to elaborate on that?
So just to start, I was in the very beginning, and I've been following Dual God for, maybe, I don't know, 2 years or whatever. I mean, I saw in the forums the day they released. And I've always been a proponent, staunch proponent of the first-person combat idea, just because it slows the game down. I think one of the biggest issues in any MMO is the rate at which combat takes place, or travel, or whatever. And that makes people consume content quickly. I just think it's bad news. I think it's good to slow things down a bit, as long as it's still fun. And so my initial vision was, everybody's in first person. You're in a giant ship. I build ships in Landmark. I've got, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, 6, 7 spaceships. Some of them is damn near as big as I can make them as far as length goes. And I love to run around in those and look out the windows, and I try to make viewports to see things, and they're just fun. I mean, I have crew quarters. I try to I put kitchens in them, or mess halls. You name it. If it has it in a Navy ship, a real battleship, it's going to most likely have it in something I build in the game. And I really wanted to see. I've wanted to see these things fly for a couple of years now, and so my idea, first person, being in one of these things, seeing it fly through space, and then would just be completely badass. When it comes to combat, that would be difficult. You'd have to have guns on the sides, people manning the guns. It would, but it would make it more fun, and it would make design important. That's another key. I'm a designer in real life, and so it would make the design of the ships important. But that's not going to happen, so there's no point in going off on that. We know it's going to be third-person combat and target locking. Well, we don't know if it's going to be third-person, but I imagine it's going to be third-person combat and target locking for ship-to-ship stuff. Who knows about player versus player? I mean, on the ground, who cares right now? I mean, the ship stuff's more sounds more fun anyway. But my thoughts are, just look at the other games that have done tab targeting combat. Any of your standard MMOs, World of Warcraft, whatever. I don't care which one it is. And most of those, or all of those, are going to be based on a roll, roll of the die. And so I think that the best way that they can implement an immersive combat that's not boring, one button click. A lot of people are worried about it being like Eve. I never played Eve, so I have no knowledge of it whatsoever. But I have played MMOs where I had 75 keybinds, to do combat. And I don't think Duel is going to be anywhere near that that elaborate. But imagine, let me gather my thoughts, because there's so much to say on this.
Could I stop for just a second?
Yeah, sure.
I'd just like to thank Xander for being here tonight, and I think he is needing to leave.
Yeah, sorry guys, I got to jump out of here real quick, but thanks for having me. And we had a lot. We covered quite a bit. I appreciate it very much. Just a quick plug. Thanks, sir. Just a quick plug. Those of you who do Reddit, there is a Dual Universe subreddit. There's actually 2. Long story short, we run the second one, which is our Duel the game. So hop on over, check out our topics, sub if you haven't subbed yet, and join the community.
Thanks,
Xander. Thanks for being
coming
here.
on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Xander.
Have a good evening.
You too, bud.
All right, so about the 75 keybinds.
Okay. Okay, we know it's going to be target locking. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent is not important. What is important is we determine and try to get information on how it is going to work, or try to help them develop it in such a way that it will be sorry, I was just reading a PM. Or it'll be fun. So here's the thing. Third-person view, imagine third-person view, and, of course, target locking. Now, target locking in its most basic form would be hit your gun button, gun fires, and attacks the ship, ship gets blown up. That's not going to be any fun. Someone said on the forums, what about giant capital ships that tab over and hit a small ship, they hit the button, and it's going to be annihilated. And I think what's going to happen is that we're going to have to, if they go this route, that you're going to see a roll attached to the attacks, just like any MMO. I mean, all you have to do is translate what you've seen in World of Warcraft or any standard MMO and port those into dual combat. So when it comes down to a ship, though, oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. You also have to take into account the other note that they brought up, which was, to fly those big ships, you need multiple crews, or you need multiple people on your ship. You need big crews.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
They don't say you need it. They say it makes it better.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Imagine me and Shadow were talking about this. I'm going to use the same kind of scenario. This is a simple kind of breakdown of it. Imagine a Star Trek Enterprise. I don't care which one. They all have a saucer section. They all have the nacelles. Imagine an Enterprise. And imagine there's, 4 or 5 people flying the ship. And so you've got a single pilot. And the pilot's view is going to be a back angle view, kind of like you would see in any third-person MMO when you see the back of your guy and all you see is your butt, and that's why dudes pick chicks, whatever. You see the back of the ship, okay? And then you've got 3 gunners. You've got a left gunner that's facing left or facing west, or what is it, starboard? Port? I get those mixed up.
Starboard's right, port's left.
Okay, thank you. Shadow Lord explained it to me earlier, but my comprehension.
Keep forgetting.
Yeah, I'm dumb.
Remember left port.
Left port? Okay, I will try to do that. But imagine we've got one facing. I'm gonna use north, south, east, west because what makes sense to me. So imagine the ship is facing north. We've got a gun on the west side facing to the left. We've got a gun on the right side or east facing east, and the gun in the north facing up or north. So the captain sees the whole ship. The gunner on the left turret is going to see the left side of the ship, but from the turret perspective. So he's going to see the side of the ship facing west. Okay? And then the same for the guy on the right is going to see right, and then the guy up front will have a similar view to the captain, but maybe moved up a little bit on the ship. If there's engineering and stuff like that, who knows? Maybe those guys are inside running around first person. I don't know. So let's say we've got our Enterprise, we've got our gunners in their positions, and those are individual people. And then we have a ship on the, let's just say, left side, and let's just say it's a Romulan-style ship or another Enterprise. I don't care. So let's just make it a duplicate. It's the exact same ship, okay, just for the sake of argument so we know what we're talking about. So the ship number 1 Enterprise, the guy on the left side fires at the ship on the far left, the second Enterprise. What's going to happen is he's going to have a roll to hit, okay? And I think that roll to hit is going to be a roll to hit an element, okay? So the elements in this case would be 2 engines on the back, 3 guns on the front, and so the first roll is going to be, the element that he's going to hit. I think it should be based on proximity to where you're sitting. So most likely he would have a greater chance of hitting the right turret. And then there should be a roll as to, of course, whether it hits or miss. I think there should be a roll as to whether it hits the element or maybe the voxels next to it within a certain proximity. The initial roll on the ship itself will be based on your ship size versus the little ship size. So let's back up. Let's go to a capital ship versus imagine Battlestar Galactica, the Galactica. Imagine the Galactica versus a Viper. The Viper attacking the Galactica, when he hits the fire button, when he shoots his guns, he's going to have a 100% chance to hit the ship. He's going to have a 100% chance to hit an element somewhere within the vicinity of his ship, the closest whatever. But the damage he's going to do is going to be really light, almost unimportant, okay? Whereas the Galactica could tab target over and hit the Viper, and one shot, boom, gone, annihilated, ship's dead, okay? But he has like a 5% chance to hit him. So this is how we can start to make, and of course it can get a lot more complex than this, but I think this is how we can start to make tab targeting combat and duel somewhat interesting if we are attacking the elements themselves. And then by extension, maybe the voxels that surround them based on a roll. Now, let's go back to the Enterprise scenario. This time we've got one guy flying a ship, and he mans all the guns. And he's going up against a mirror of the ship, but the mirror has got the scenario with the 5 people in it. In this scenario, it's going to be like, going back to your standard MMOs, this is going to be like, wearing or drinking pots or having a better set of armor. The ship that has 5 people manning it are going to have a greater % chance on their rolls versus the guy that's single piloting it. So he might have a chance it's not going to be a good one. And then he'll learn through exercise that, you know what, this game is meant to be played with other people. But that's kind of my basic idea of what I think that they can do based on how other MMOs work, based on what they're looking at.
Yeah, I can see that being viable. It's one way to go about it. I'm sure people have thought of other ways to. I've seen some people suggest that the targeting system isn't a tab targeting system. It's not a first-person shooter. It's if anybody's ever played like Tabula Rasa or Neverwinter online, you select your target from an actual targeting reticle. It's effectively the same thing as tab targeting, but it requires, some actual effort to be put into targeting. And if you're manning turrets
Basically
and trying to shoot down fighters,
hidden tab targeting thing.
right?
Well, it's like a targeting reticle in WoW, like an AOE reticle.
Not AOE though. It's a tab targeting that's based on what you're looking at.
Right. So in that respect, yes, it's a tab target, and whatever you have highlighted with your reticle is what you're targeting, but you still have to highlight it.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, my thought was that it was going to be more based on it's a similar type deal, but I was thinking more on proximity. And obviously, if you're on the left side of the ship and you're on the gun on the left side of the ship, and the ship that you're trying to tag is on the right side of your ship, you're not going to hit it because he's outside of your cone of attack.
Well, from everything that I've read so far about what DU has said about how they want targeting systems done and how they want skills to be implemented and all that, the closest thing I see is how EVE runs its combat. In EVE, yes, combat is basically select target, move in, shoot the guy. But you can select your engagement distance and such.
See, you say EVE, but I have another game that's slightly or more what I think. Unfortunately, the last servers shut down actually just this year. But it was UCGO, or it was a Gundam game. It had tab targeting and it had a similar skill system where you didn't have levels. You would just gain the skill as you did something more and more. But there was a level cap and all that stuff. And that's basically how I'm thinking Duel will do it, just because you don't want to have someone who's been playing forever that can do everything perfectly in the game.
Yep.
No.
Shadowlord, did you have anything you were wanting to say there?
Did he walk away?
No.
I think that was just him that was speaking on that last.
No,
one.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm reading chat too much.
I don't read chat. Just so everybody knows, if you're in chat asking questions, I don't read chat when I'm talking.
I'm keeping tabs on it. And actually, someone mentioned clothing. What do we think about that?
It was Astro. It's always Astro who mentions clothing.
Yeah, of course it is. But, that's anatomy. So clothing, what do we think about that?
Yes.
I hope there's more ways to customize than everyone being in the same spacesuit.
Oh, absolutely. Clothing and armor, or what you're wearing, is hyper important, but not right now. They're so focused on getting the base of the pyramid laid down that we can't worry about clothing at the capstone.
Oh no!
I gotta wonder how clothing is gonna be important. Like, if you get out of your ship in space, are you gonna die because you're not wearing a helmet?
You should. Yeah, I think
you
that's
should.
Totally. But I mean, the thing is a lot of us, man, especially dudes. I mean, this is kind of sexist maybe, but I would say especially dudes really focus on the spaceship aspect. I know I do. I think dual universe. I think spaceship. First thing that pops in my head. But we've got to remember that there's also going to be the civilian. Well, I'll call them civilians, but the people on the ground making buildings and markets and all that kind of stuff. And I think
business.
Yeah, and I think in that case, it's going to look stupid if everybody's running around with the helmet on.
I like to point out Star Wars Galaxies in situations like this because a lot of people will sit there and say, "Well, only this game is like about PvP or it's about building or anything else like that." And in a sandbox game, I point out Star Wars Galaxy where there were guys who like, "What do you do when you play Star Wars Galaxy?" "I run a cantina." "Are you serious?"
I play my
there are
flute
people
in the
that do that.
cantina. I play my flute for 6 hours a day in the cantina because I'm trying to raise my skill level in entertainment.
Right,
Yeah.
but there are people that run the cantina because that's their entire character. What did you want to play in Star Wars? I want to play a cantina owner.
Well, exactly.
Okay, not the most exciting thing, I think, but teach their own.
Well, we've seen people that have already shown a ton of interest in running. I mean, and not just the people in this chat, but I mean other people that want to like be big governors and kings and all kinds of. Man, I have no interest in politics at that level. That stuff can kiss off, man. I want to make spaceships, But
I own a company. I don't own anything else, pretty much.
Meanwhile,
make
I want
deals
to
with the
rule the
governors, but that's
universe.
I want to launch a crusade against any religion that tries to rise.
Yeah, but
against
your
me.
icon's been on screen for the last 20 minutes. We know that.
I know. I've been waiting for the opportunity to talk about what the icon is.
So basically,
Shameless self-promotion.
Then in that case, let's put an icon of the DOA up. Why not Terran Union as well? Heck, Centerfold.
But back to the outfits, man. I think that there's going to have to be a lot of them, and to appeal to different styles. And I think that it's important to appeal to the females that want to play the game. And I'm just basing this on what I've seen in Landmark, but it seems like a lot of females are more into making homes, decorating, just doing stuff like that. Maybe businesses, crafting, that kind of stuff. And I think it'll really enhance the game if everybody can be in their own unique outfit. But like I said, I think that'll come, but it's going to be a long ways away. We got to get everything else down first.
Sure.
Definitely.
I draw the line at a space-based version of Second Life, though.
I gotta wonder how people are, like, if I'm running a bar, certainly I'm not gonna, unless I really want to run a bar at the far ass, edge of space where nobody is, and I hardly ever see anybody come in. Maybe that's how I want to play. But I think more people are gonna like focus on, space stations or places that are heavy in trade where a lot of players pass through at any given time.
Also, it was just mentioned in chat, clothing can lead to religious outfits for your campaign.
Yes. You need a priest robe.
Yeah.
What I want to point out is regarding clothing. It's also important for recognition of officials like police officers or something, or that there is someone that can help you in certain tasks.
Or members of a faction.
Or that's this one good-looking person right there. I like.
Also,
him.
unfortunately, when they said the clothing for Yama's religious faction, I totally didn't think of Doctor Who and the church. So, if you don't know, because for some reason you don't watch Doctor Who, you go to church, but in order to go to church, you have to be naked.
Oh, I remember this one.
Yes. Unfortunately, I think to explain, I think to explain this one requires way more exposition.
It does, but I'm not going to give it. So
just watch the episode.
Basically, there is a church in Doctor Who, the Universal Church, I believe, in the future, where you have to go to church naked. That's the. Let's see, what is it? No shoes, no shirt, no clothing, no service. No service.
The other way around.
Fail.
I would like to see the game, extend so far as where people actually specialize in making clothing. So clothing is not just something you can just like choose from random, like you're not just allocated all the clothes you need. I'd like people to actually craft clothes. Like maybe have a preset amount of what clothes exist in the game, not like so far as Second Life, but actually being able to go and grow the the fiber that you need, or get the resources off animals that you need to make the clothing that you want to make.
And maybe also being able to customize the colors of clothing through maybe an edge or such.
I mean,
Yeah,
think
so I
about
was
how cool it would be if, like, if in order to get to space, not only you had to research the ship materials to get there, but also somebody in the game would have to focus on researching to make the outfits, like the spacesuits, to actually be able to let you live up there.
Ooh.
Well, see, with that, we came from the Ark ship, so we technically already have the suit.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of already got that built in.
Right, but what is it appropriate for? For instance,
Sex,
did any of you-
drugs.
did any of you see the movie The Martian? No,
Ah.
he's wearing a suit that's specifically for Mars. He couldn't use it as a spacesuit. He had to put on a real spacesuit when he went into space. Something that's appropriate for your environment, may work out for you, but it may not work out for you when you go elsewhere.
yeah. So
The
like
notion on the clothing is the nanoformer. Is that like a built-in piece that you have to wear at all times? Would you be able to have clothing that moves around that, or?
From the
It's pretty
images
much-
I've seen, it's like a device. In all the images, it's orange, but it's a device that just sticks on the outside of your suit most of the time. Or at least
Like-
it looks like it does.
Who
Like
knows? They
Bit
may have
Boy.
did some experiments.
I hope that it can't just build
I had
everything
an
in the game.
entire thread devoted to that and how the Ark ship somehow reminded me of vaults.
I've started a thread as well on like the nanoformers and what their capabilities could be.
Well,
or how
someone
we can
just
expand them.
said something about the. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was done.
Okay. They just talked about not hoping that the nanoformers didn't do everything. If you go back to the Duels Media a long time ago, yeah, they have a large 3D printed machine, and they even have a concept of a much bigger one. I mean, they have a scale of the dude, and the thing is like 3 or 4 stories tall. So,
The assembler.
Yeah. So one thing to consider. Dual, I think, and this makes sense from a developer perspective, especially with their team, and especially with because they got all the money up front to do what they're doing now. Of course, we get into alpha. They need to make sure the game's in a nice playable state. And then they do the money making thing, and then we make the money, whatever. But they want the game to be slow. Okay, they're going to want us to take a while to get out there, build little things. It's going to be just like the beginnings of this world. The 20th century. We started off slow, and then we just progressively got better and better and better. And a year from now, the people that are playing the game are not, they'll be able to log in and get into a guild immediately and fly a spaceship probably within an hour. But for us, it may take, a year to get a capital ship out.
I gotta wonder, you mentioned those giant, the big 3D printers and those screenshots or the 3D renderings they had. I gotta wonder, if we're building a capital ship, if we actually can just, Minecraft it where magically we end up carrying, hundreds of sheets of steel on us that we can just, assemble in space how we want, or if we have to assemble the pieces and then actually move the pieces into place in space.
It could be both, actually.
Yeah, both.
I can
Because
almost
we do have
guarantee
CAD packs,
you,
which can hold tons, and we've got anti-grav technology.
I can almost guarantee you that sometime during the alpha or beta, that will be an option to do, just so they can actually stress test it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The alpha stuff is going to be getting us in. I mean, the first stuff is going to be getting the builders in to see how the voxel groundwork is working and what we can make with it, and because that's kind of a really big core aspect of it, the building.
The printers one of the printers was the screen that was just up.
God, I love their art, man. Oh,
Yeah.
their art, it's just
They even have a foundry model, which we can imagine that is for smelting down ore and stuff. So obviously, the nanoformer is not going to be the only thing.
From what I've seen, the nanoformer just like picks up and replaces things. If you want to do anything special with it, you need a machine. So you can pick up the ore, but until you refine it, it's going to be almost useless to you.
Yep, and maybe there'll be a built-in little refinery because, of course, we need to get those beginning resources.
I would love to see in the game, like, to have to require to actually fly pieces up into space, kind of like how we built the real life space station. You know, they didn't just assemble it in space; they had to carry up, sections of the space station up there. I'd like to see that in the game, where like, the first space stations that are built are people that are working together, or maybe even competing space stations where pieces have to be assembled on the ground and flown up into space.
I agree. Oh, go ahead, Shadow.
Well, in regards to that as well, you're going to have to, if you have to fly the pieces up from the ground, you're going to start needing to think about fuel, because if it takes a lot of fuel, you're going to run out pretty quick. Or it's going to cost you a ton. So other ways to get into space would also have to be thought about.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's also the PvP aspect. The sad truth about PvP in a big world is that it comes down to this. I mean, you've seen it in Space Engineers, man. You can't even make giant ships because of the griefing that'll happen.
I can totally make giant ships in Space Engineers.
Well,
but then again, I run a company in Space Engineers as well, so it's not like I'm a one person trying to do it. I've got a ton of other people and a ton of guns.
But how many people on the server?
Close.
You got to think, though, there can't be that many
like
lone
20.
people. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not talking about lone people, man. I'm talking about, you could have 50, 100 people working on something and a fleet of 5,000 guys fly by and blow all your shit up.
There's already an entire thing of pirates.
Yeah,
Already.
they did kind of touch on that, though, where, like, I think we touched on that last week, where they said, everywhere is PvP, but places can be PvE in the sense that, if you properly protect them, then you shouldn't have to worry. Like, then they're invulnerable.
Yeah.
Yep, it's definitely a fragile topic.
Well, and
I gotta
it's
think,
tough.
though,
Oh, go ahead.
I gotta think, though, like, in terms of, like, pirates and stuff, like, if someone becomes notorious for being a jerk and just, like, flying around and killing people, or destroying stuff, when their ship is destroyed, maybe somebody won't sell them a ship in the future. Maybe it'll be harder for them to get stuff. Like, there's consequences for all the things you do.
But
Yeah, no.
see, that comes down to the market, and we don't know exactly how that'll work. If it's like an Eve market, or if it's where you have to meet face to face and do deals.
Well, even if it's like an Eve market, where like, so from what I understand in the game, they're going to allow us to build markets, like whether they're terminals or whatever. Effectively, they're player-built markets where you have to go there and get the item that you bought. Like, you can't just it won't just teleport to you or show up in your inventory. And what I think will happen is that, if you become notorious for being a jerk, it's going to be harder for you to get into the markets.
I'd like to bring up that Scruggs is going to be leaving us right now.
No.
Yeah, no, sorry guys, I got to get going. But I definitely had fun talking about Dual Universe with you guys, and appreciate being here with you guys.
No.
So it was nice having you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so I'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Have a good
See you
night.
later, Scruggs.
All right,
See
Maybe
you.
Scruggs.
later.
Hey, man, I don't know what you guys talking about in chat about cops, but we're good. We're good bad guys.
Well, you brought up there could be consequences if somebody acts like a jerk or acts like a pirate or anything else like that.
Cops is the pirate faction, by the way.
Yeah, but we're pirate smugglers, and we're pirates like Harlock, and we're smugglers like Han Solo and Malcolm Reynolds. We're not bad people.
Harlock's ship is amazing.
Dude, Harlock's ship is bad. I mean, I watched it again today. Man, I've never copied a spaceship in Landmark. I like to build my own unique IP stuff, but man, that might be one I have to go for.
It gives a whole different definition to piracy in the game, though, because in order to be a good pirate, like, your whole life and your whole way of being depends on being able to steal cargo and steal stuff from people and not die all the time. Like, if you're just not good at killing people and stealing stuff, like, you're not going to be a good pirate because you won't be able to pay for anything or survive on your own.
Yeah. Well, no, and my focus is really on my guild. It's more, look, I've always played lone wolf solo guy. That's just how I prefer to play, but I don't think duel's going to work out that way. And so I'm trying to create to create something that might welcome people that like that kind of solo stuff, but also kind of gently nudge them towards that. We need to kind of work together, because if you just hammer it down their throat, they're going to be turned off by it. If they can figure it out for themselves and say, you know what, I do need to be, part of something larger, then they'll welcome it. When it's their idea, they'll welcome it, even if it's your idea slowly pushed into their head.
Well, that's the trouble always. You gotta, instead of force an idea down their throat, make them think it's theirs.
Exactly. And but there's going to be a lot of people that want to do their smaller stuff. That's why I preface, if you want to fly a Millennium Falcon, or if you want to fly, Serenity or whatever, that you've got these groups of 5 or 6 people that work together. But ultimately, to see anything bigger, to make a bigger ship, hell, maybe even make those, they're going to have to be a part of something bigger.
Well, with that note, it's getting kind of late. Well,
Yes,
maybe not
it
so
is.
late.
Not so
I'm not
late,
going to
but-
sleep, but I think it's a good time to start wrapping up the episode.
Yes, this has been DU Explorers with your current host, Master Dreadstone, because they forced me to do this some reason. Help me.
And I'd like to urge everybody to convert to Meroism.
Yep, they forced me to.
So long as he doesn't throw his logo on the screen for another 30 minutes.
If you're
Too
going to
late.
throw a logo, do Cinderfall or CSU.
I will point out
DU.
Cops.
that I
Cops
did
logo.
say that you should give me the images that you want put on the stream.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good point.
perfectly fair. He did tell us that. And I will be practicing my space black magic, so I will not be converting to Meroism, unfortunately.
I told you guys,
Good.
I never got the link.
Okay, then. Well, this has been DU Explorers with your host, Master Redstone. And would everyone like to give their final thoughts and their outro?
Neapolitan here. Just keep up the good ideas, everyone. Join the forums, look at the Reddit. Take care. I'm out.
Darius?
I say bye and have a nice evening.
Wardian?
It's been fun. We've discussed a lot of good ideas here, and I've saved quite a few from the Twitch chat to bring up next time. So if you didn't get your question answered, I'm sure we'll cover it next time. Have a nice night, everybody.
Yama?
Yeah, I think if I have anything that I'd like to leave off on, it's be nice to each other.
Yep. Alien?
Oh, man. Keep up the enthusiasm for Dual Universe. Also be patient. Keep in mind that it's going to be a bit of a ride, and it's going to be, maybe half a year to a year before we really see people getting in game and doing stuff. But just keep up the enthusiasm, and as Yamamushi said, be cool to each other. Sorry about birching your name.
And finally, Shadow.
Well, I don't have anything to say, but thanks for having me, even though I was a bit late.
Yep, but hey, the actual guest spotlight we had planned was late, so what can you say? And I believe that is the end of DU Explorers for tonight. Thank you all for watching. This is Master Redstone, your temporary host and captive, and I will see you all later. See ya.